I'm ready to splash and burn.
Jason and I were really good buddies from college.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. And tonight we have a family episode. I have the whole Vasquez family with me to talk about Defender and Whiplash. Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So excited about this one. Obviously, I, along with many Battlebots fans, have loved Whiplash for years. And now you have another robot in the mix in Defender, which is also great, and a control bot, which I love it. Big fan of control bots here. So excited to talk about both of them.
Cool.
Sweet. So are we.
I'll tell you whatever you want to know.
Yeah, so let's get into just kind of recapping the regular season last year. I'm not going to go super into any one particular match because there's obviously a lot of matches to talk about between both of these robots, but looking at Defender first during the regular season last year. So 2-1 record in the regular season. KO lost to Ribot, judge's decision wins against Riptide and Retrograde, which honestly, that Riptide one for me is super impressive because they're just such an awesome rookie bot as well, and very destructive. They won one of the awards, as we saw, for top rookie of the year. So let's kind of talk about that regular season, because I just thought it was so solid, and because of that, Defender was one of my favorites in the Sin City Slugfest tournament. So
Yeah, thank you so much. Beating them was definitely like one of the highlights of the tournament for sure. I was pretty nervous going into that fight, but after the first few exchanges, I could tell that our upgrades to the forks were going to work really well the whole fight. So that was pretty exciting to get that win right after losing the first fight against Ribot. And that was just mainly a real big eye-opener because I realized that the forks needed some big improvement. And for seasons to come and future competitions, I've definitely got to just dial in some new forks. So, yeah.
yeah, I thought it was interesting, that they put you up against two fellow rookie bots in Riptide and Retrograde, and you were able to beat both of them. Obviously, like that loss to Ribot, but when you look at the quality of those wins, when you view those robots from like how well they did in the season and how well they did in the respective tournaments, is really impressive. Ribot got into the Golden Bolt tournament. Riptide obviously did very well, and Retrograde, did as well. So that was pretty amazing stuff there. Now, on the flip side with Whiplash, undefeated in the regular season, wins against Bloodsport, Scorpios, and Icewave, which again, when you're looking at strength of schedule, Bloodsport doing as well as they did in the Slugfest, Scorpios obviously getting into the Golden Bolt tournament, Icewave always a dangerous robot. Not that I was surprised because Whiplash is just such a phenomenal robot, but kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I guess I can start with the Bloodsport one. We had fought a bunch of horizontals in the past. We fought like Sonoyachi, we fought Tombstone a couple times, fought like Valkyrie. So I'm pretty darn comfortable fighting horizontals at this point, especially like since we put that big plow on the front of Whiplash, we haven't lost to a single horizontal spinner. So like normally if we get matched up to one, like I feel pretty confident. And in my opinion, Bloodsport is probably one of the toughest ones, like maybe not the hardest hitting one, but it's probably the only one that has like a really good controllable drive base that can actually like dodge my box rushes and, actually push me around. Say their weapon died, they could totally scoop us up and wedge us. So I think for that reason, they're probably one of the scariest horizontals. And I was kind of worried about it, but yeah, that one, able to flip them over, get them on the shelf, like kind of just in the nick of time to get the knockout. So yeah, had we not gotten that knockout when we did, I don't know, the judge's decision probably could have gone either way. So there's a little bit of luck in that one. As far as the Scorpios fight, that one was our first fight with kind of our fork setup with no spinner And that was mainly because when we fought Sawblaze the year before, we just got annihilated. Like we had 2 layers of thin titanium top plates, and like Sawblaze just went straight through them. So we're like, okay, not making that mistake again. Like Scorpios is pretty similar robot. So yeah, we just had a ton of weight and top armor on it. Like all the way from the spinner went into top armor. So we felt, I mean, they never ended up really pinning us, but had they pinned us, I don't think they would have gone through. So it was nice having that comfort. Yeah, that fight was really interesting because it started out really, really well. We kind of pushed them with the screws, lift them up there. And kind of right after they got down, I was driving, hit a seam on the floor, and we lost a drive chain. So for about 2.5 of those 3 minutes, we were on 3 wheels, not really able to drive. So for most of that Scorpios fight, I was just kind of pointing towards them, just trying not to let them scoop us up. And luckily our design was kind of good enough where that was all we needed. So yeah, that fight was a little disappointing in my eyes, just considering the robot didn't work very well. But yeah, that was another one where we just kind of barely snuck out the win. And Ice Wave was another kind of rocky fight. Like we had some new wedgelets on the big plow, and because Ice Wave's got those ground scraping wedgelets, kind of like Bloodsport. It's kind of the Bloodsport of the before era. So yeah, that one was tricky because like we had one exchange where like our wedge went up their wedge and their bar actually hit one of our wedgelets and like totally exploded it where it was kind of bent all out of shape. And that had us kind of high centered for a few seconds there. And that was pretty scary. Like, cause I thought, oh crap, like, am I stuck? But yeah, I got off of that pretty quick and then just kind of said, okay, we gotta wrap this up because we might get stuck again. So then we pushed him in the screws and got him flipped. So yeah, that was the gist of that fight.
Yeah. And before I get into any of the stuff with the tournament, either of the tournaments, and we'll talk a little bit more in depth about those matches, but to your parents, like you obviously see both of them all the time, like with these robots driving so well, doing these amazing things, having the seasons that they had last year, and what Whiplash has done every year prior. Like, how proud are you of what they've been able to accomplish? Because especially this last season with both robots, like that's amazing.
It's off the charts pretty
Yeah,
much.
it really is. I mean, to build one robot is very hard. To build 2 is insane and really kind of ridiculous. But we did it. And, if it kind of just shows the life lesson there is if you make a decision, you put your mind to it, if you can see a path forward, you follow that. And we got the robots built and they both performed,
And when you say build 2 robots, that really means build 4
4.
robots.
Yeah.
Everybody's bringing spares and you kind of have to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah, and we needed them. I mean, like Defender took a lot of damage and Whiplash. I mean, we use our spare parts. Everyone does. And
yeah, I think for most of the event, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but Defender was kind of just chopped up parts of both the Defenders kind of combined into one Frankenstein Defender for most of the competition. Yeah. So
the frame I spent most of the time on, like originally building the robot, only fought against Robot, and then we haven't touched since. Like the spare frame that I rushed through was the one that made it through all its fights. So, and that frame is still pretty much untouched. That frame is good to go. So.
Yeah, and what I don't think a lot of people realize is that, I mean, our team, we're really just a family of 4. So, at the event, we were super lucky to have Rob Masick help us.
Yeah.
But here, we don't. And both boys were in college last year. You were finishing up, and Jason was away at college. And they each, I mean, Jason basically.
I think it was over summers. We did.
Yeah. Okay, but Jason, I mean, from the conception of Defender to building it to
designing it,
everything.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like they do it without a lot of help. At all. I handle mostly like back end stuff, and Jeff's got a full-time job, so he has his second job when he comes home and helps when he can.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Jason basically built Defender
like he basically builds Whiplash.
Like 80% by himself. And Matt did the same thing with Whiplash. And with, there's crossover and everything. And we have friends who come and help us and occasionally, but basically, we build it all here.
We're
in our
very much a
garage.
mom and pop shop.
Yeah, we are a mom and pop shop. Yeah.
That is amazing, especially given the quality of the robots. So that
No,
says a lot.
I have to agree with you. It really is. I'm amazed. I'm thinking, how do we do that? You know, I still can't believe we got to the
We're
final.
amazing.
And it's just like, I think about that and all the work, and everyone who's built the BattleBot or any kind of robot will know it's an amazing amount of work and planning and logistics, and then you got to know how to drive it. And the only place you can practice with a BattleBot is it really, truly is in the BattleBox. Because I mean, you know, these things can put a hole in a car. So I mean, we do run them out in the street occasionally, but you know, it's.
Jason, how much drive time would you say you had before going to the event?
Oh, prior to the event with both the lift and grab. What?
Combined with just Defender, like out in the driveway, like
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, not a whole lot at all.
Under an hour.
Yeah, and one of the
like maybe
biggest unique things with Defender last season was just the controls. I had 6 things to control, including the flame and the like both side drives and the lifter and grabber. And making that a little bit easier to control next season is absolutely something we're looking into, but it definitely could use more practice. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah, definitely pretty phenomenal. So let's talk about the round of 32, which was very sad for me, because I was certainly rooting for both robots. But let's first talk about the Defender KO loss to Hydra. I mean, that's definitely a difficult one because Hydra is so hard to get underneath and also so hard to avoid them getting underneath you. And like, you know, once that happens, it's just flip after flip after flip. Let's talk about that one. I mean, what was your strategy, you know, going into that, and you know, what happened there?
yeah, it was absolutely a little disappointing, but the strategy is pretty much just get under them. Like, as everyone knows, all edges of Hydra are pretty much the lowest it could get. And with Whiplash getting under it just the year prior, I did have a little bit of optimism that we could pull it off again, especially after like putting in a little extra work on our forks. But in the future, we're definitely going to have to really get that dialed in, because I could not get under. And then after the first flip, the robot was bent. And then one fork gets higher than the other, and then you're just all downhill from there. But yeah, it was definitely a little disappointing that I was playing round 2, but I do totally get it, since my 2 main wins in the first half of the tournament were not totally like over like the top knockouts. So I do get it, but I'm still happy I got like top 34. That's definitely cool for like a rookie robot that I built around 80% myself pretty much. So yeah.
Yeah. So then with Whiplash, and this was definitely a match that was considered controversial just because of how it went down, versus Cobalt. Really difficult. I mean, I've obviously talked to the Gigabyte Cobalt team about this match from their perspective, but I'm curious to hear about it from your perspective, Matt.
Yeah, I think so. Like before the fight, I mean, Cobalt's pretty scary robot. I think this was round 16. Yeah, I don't know. Like during the fight, we went head to head, and I realized like, okay, I can get under them. If I face them, we'll probably win this fight. Like that's what was going through my head. We got like 2-3 lifts on them in the beginning, and I was like, this is going great. And I'm like, okay, push them into the wall. We get hung up. You know, before I could back out, Cobalt comes behind us and gets one big shot that like totally screws up one half of our drive. So then Cobalt kind of comes back in. We kind of are both in the corner. We get stuck again, and simultaneously Cobalt gets stuck. So Cobalt was stuck on like the floor or debris, something. They weren't on the wall. They were just on the floor. So yeah, so we're both stuck there. And then Cobalt kind of spins down, and then we're kind of there and we're just kind of going like, okay, like what happens here? This fight's only been like 20 seconds. Like, are you going to free us? Are you going to free one of us?
We
Are
were
you
asking for unstick.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we asked for an unstick the first time we got
Immediately.
stuck, and then they kind of didn't do it. And then we're like, okay, then Cobalt hits us. Then we asked for another one. And then they're kind of like going back and forth. Like, what do we do? Like, do we want to unstick them? Do we want to not unstick them? And Trey deemed it not safe enough to unstick us and kind of just said like, turn off the robots, take them out of the arena. And Cobalt had like a power switch that was damaged. So like they couldn't shut it off with the Allen key. They had to like actually pull the batteries out. So that was kind of the story behind that. So it was just a very weird situation where they just kind of had to judge 20 seconds of a fight and kind of didn't really follow any of the rules they're supposed to follow during this type of thing, which was very frustrating to, you know, lose for that reason. And I mean, that stuff like happens, but I think the thing that really frustrated me is on the airing of the show, they weren't very honest about what happened. Like they said, like, oh, Cobalt's weapon couldn't be turned off, which was,
It was off.
it was completely just not true at all.
Yeah.
Like they literally walked in, just unloaded the robots. So that was definitely frustrating that they kind of tried to sweep all that under the rug just because they
Well, and they didn't air the fight.
yeah, they didn't air the fight either.
Yeah,
so
so-
they kind of just tried to pretend it didn't
Didn't
exist
happen.
and they didn't do anything
That-
wrong.
That was
Which
how
was-
it was dealt with.
Yeah, that was definitely frustrating.
And I think
Yeah.
that they knew that it was handled really wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And then later in the competition, kind of the same exact thing happens with two other robots and they do the exact opposite thing. So it's like, it was very,
it
it
was
was not good.
brouhaha. It was, people were, a lot of the teams were really.
we were kind of over it, like right after we're like, okay, this really sucks, but okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But then once that other fight happened and Minotaur and Witch
Yeah.
Doctor, that just personally put me over the edge. I was
Yeah.
just kind of like,
Poor Greg.
seriously, poor Greg. Greg, I'm sorry. Greg, I love you. It's nothing personal. Trey, I love you too. Nothing personal.
She
But
was
I was
vicious.
pissed off.
Yeah. Then we cooled down from that and then it aired and then we go, they're not even telling the truth about it. Like, okay,
Yeah.
so now now we're mad again.
No, it
but-
didn't air.
Yes.
Then they
Yeah.
said, oh, that we're not
Oh,
going
yeah.
to.
Or the recap aired.
The recap,
Yeah.
very strategic shots from the recap.
Yeah, and I mean, even as a fan, that was really difficult to watch. You know, not just because I love Whiplash, but I mean, that's hard to see that happen to anyone. And honestly, it was a big part, that whole tournament was a big part of the reason why it was so important to me to do an episode with John Remar as a referee and to do an episode with the judges, because there were so many things that happened that, you know, I really kind of wanted to dive into that end of things to see if we could get some clarity, because it just, that at the end of that tournament, I don't know that I was like satisfied because of so many things that happened.
Yeah, neither were we. But I mean, to be honest, it was that tournament.
There was a
had
lot riding on that.
Yeah,
fight.
and that tournament had a really kind of funky feel to it as opposed to other seasons, personally speaking. But you know, it was just, there was, you know, in the battle box, it's war, and it's a very dynamic situation, and a lot of things are going on at once. And at times it can be dangerous. So you try to err on the side of caution. The number one thing is no one gets hurt. No people get hurt. The robots get killed. That's fine. But so the fact that there was confusion, that was kind of after so many seasons and all the experience and everything. I mean, stuff goes wrong, you know, it does, and we understand that. But the way that happened,
Too much went
it
wrong.
was too much, too much went wrong. And then the cover up, you know, the cover up didn't help things. So yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
it was very hard to see like all the speculation on Reddit and on, you know, in the Facebook group that everybody, all the fans were like coming up with their theories, and it was like, you're all wrong. You're all wrong.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to tell myself he's probably going to get mad. But it's just a funny story that I think you'll really appreciate. So with the Minotaur And no, and the
No.
witch.
No.
What is funny?
That's funny.
No, it is funny. And we love Andrea and Mike. I mean, we're friends and it's all good. And it was absolutely nothing personal. It was just after what we experienced, I really felt like it was unfair to Minotaur. And we love those guys. And Daniel had been through so much. And I personally just really didn't think it was fair. So I was all worked up. I ran from the pits to the audience. And I was like waiting for Greg. And I was going to hold Daniel back if he was going to lose it. But I was standing right in front of where Farouk announces. So that when they went to hand him the card with the winner on it for him to announce, I said, Farouk, I said, no matter what it says, it was Minotaur. I said, you have the power. And the winner is Minotaur. And he's like, no, I can't do that.
That judge's decision was fair. The
Yeah,
handling,
the judges did
Yeah.
nothing wrong. The judges
they,
did
they,
absolutely nothing wrong.
they called it properly. It was just
Per the rules,
Okay.
but the rules were.
no, the rules were fine, but like just
Well,
the refing could have been much better
Yes.
and more consistent.
The judges did nothing
Judging
wrong.
was fine.
Yeah.
Like every fight was judged properly in my opinion, but it's just very inconsistent refing, like very inconsistent refing.
Yeah, it's.
Which was
This year
kinda
will be
disappointing.
better. I
Yeah.
think
Yes,
they've been working really hard
Yeah,
on
they've-
trying to
Mhm.
make things better. They listen to the fans and they listen to the builders. And I think
Listen to Debbie. And you have no idea.
No.
But anyway, no, they they know there were issues and they're correcting them and, it's all good. So.
and
Yeah.
not taking anything away from any of the teams that won. I mean,
None.
Don, everybody did great. It happens to everybody. It's like somebody's turn.
They're
all the
like
time.
honest mistakes, or honest problems. That stuff happens.
And even if they aren't honest mistakes, it's not the team's fault.
Yeah.
Like, the teams are they're just there existing.
We're
doing their
hanging
best.
on for dear
Yeah.
life and
It's
doing
like-
our best.
Like, why are you
And-
gonna get mad at a team for what the judges did or what the
Yeah,
ref did?
exactly.
It's like
So.
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense. It's
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was unfortunate because I think that like Andrea and Mike and the team didn't really get to kind of celebrate it because
Yeah,
it was
'cause
such an
everyone-
uncomfortable
And they
situation.
took a lot of heat.
Yeah, for something
which
that was not at all
It
ridiculous.
had
their
nothing
fault.
to do with
Like,
it.
Yeah, I
it's-
mean,
yeah.
that
Right,
was
enough
a fair-
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about what I considered to be like truly a palate cleanser, which was the Sin City Slugfest. I mean, granted, it obviously didn't go that well for your robots in the end, but it like for me, that whole tournament, the Sin City Slugfest, was some of the best Battlebots content that I've seen in a while, and it was such a pleasant like thing to refresh after what was the bad taste in my mouth of like the previous tournament. So let's definitely talk about that. So
I'm gonna step out real quick.
yeah,
I'll be right
go
back.
ahead. So Defender faced Claw Viper, and I will say that match though in general was very much a highlight for me. It was just like a wonderful display of two control bots going at it and just putting on a good match. And I honestly had picked Defender to win that one, but I really underestimated how fast Claw Viper is. And so I'm very curious to hear your take on that match, Jason.
Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely a highlight for me too. I think the thing that made me the happiest was that the lifter was working a lot better than in the previous matches. So I got to prove that I could lift up another robot like pretty well. And I got him over the screws a few times. I wish that they stuck him up onto the deck, but there's always a little room for improvement there. But in the scheme of things, it was a long event, and having filmed that right after the whole season, I was a little bit ready to get out of there. And the next fight would have been Mad Catter, and their weapon seems to be more powerful than ever, and they proved that on Claw Viper. So honestly, I'm kind of happy that I was able to walk away with a robot that's pretty much unscathed and could use a lot more like testing without having to rebuild from scratch pretty much. So that was cool. And it was weird how the wheel fell off because to like my knowledge, it just unscrewed. I didn't really notice them like gnawing on it or pulling it or like
Well, Dad
really
thought
getting at it that bad. What was that?
Dad thought it was his fault. He said it was something he thought he did or didn't do.
I think it was too short of a screw. The wrong screw was used, I think, is our theory.
At the end of the day, I was happy the robot got to be able to prove itself. It was dominating the first half of the match until that wheel fell off, and I wasn't too bummed about it. I'm a little bummed that it made my record a little worse, just the number thing. But I love that builder, and it's a really cool robot. So I was happy that how that all played out.
Yeah, it was a great match. And I mean, like you said, you would have had Mad Catter after that. And if you had gotten past Mad Catter, you would have had to face the devastating path of Will Bales. So
That would have been fun.
That would have been fun. We want to fight Will.
Yeah,
I don't know why they won't let
Defender,
us fight him. Hopefully this
Yeah.
next season.
a rookie defender would not have been too happy in those matchups. Future iterations could handle it, but I think it was all for the best.
Jay, my money would have been on you.
Thanks.
That's why we have money.
No, I spend it all on robots.
Sorry, Jay.
He spends it all
We're
on
ready for Hypershock.
he spends most of it on robots and the rest poorly betting on robots.
That's what robots-
No.
Oh,
It's a joke.
I get it.
yeah, so that was definitely a good match. Now, Whiplash obviously had a very different path in the Sin City Slugfest. So we'll dive into that. So the first match was against Hijinks, and I thought that was also just a really great match. And I think it was a matter of, figuring out after initially, okay, we definitely don't want to drive up the back of that tail, because that was working really well for them. And then you were kind of able to get around, having that very sturdy plow to be able to take those hits from their weapon, obviously was the key to success in that one.
Yeah, it's funny. I think I had like pretty much the same mindset as Jason going into the Slugfest like mini bracket. Like, I think so not everyone can compete in this. You have to be eliminated early to compete in this. And Whiplash went out in the round of 16, which is like the cutoff where you can enter or you don't enter the Slugfest. And I did not plan on entering. Like, I didn't sign up, but like that night, or maybe even the morning of our Hijinks fight, like they said, do you guys want to do this? Like, do you want to be in this? We have a spot for you. And then I kind of said like, well, like, if someone else wants to do it more, like, feel free to put them in, but like, if you want us in there, we'll do it. So they ended up wanting us in there. So we kind of just hastily put the robot together and we're like, we're fighting Hijinks today. So we honestly, when we told us we were in, I didn't know what bracket we were in. I didn't know who the bounty robot was. I was just like, we're in a tournament. That's all I know.
Tell us where to show
Just
up.
tell us where to show up. So then like we found out we're fighting Hijinks and we're like, okay, put the big plow back on, like let's get prepared. So yeah, that fight was tricky. Like, they had that nice big tail on the back. The robot is really oddly shaped. It's super long. It's not like I feel like we thrive with more squarish shaped robots where we could kind of tip them over and prop them up on themselves. Whereas Hijinks is like very long robots. When you lift them, like, they kind of just fall off, or even if you do flip them, they're just kind of flipping on their own wheels, really, because like they could turn over on the wheels. So yeah, it was really tricky. They're a really slippery robot. Like, the tail was really hard to get around at first. Like, they kind of scoop me up and push me around. So their strategy is really great. It was frustrating not being able to do the thing I normally do against horizontals, which is just slam into them, don't care where I hit them, just hit them as fast as I can. And I couldn't do that because I know they'd scoop me up on top of them. So I had to be really careful. It made for like a slower paced fight, which is a lot less fun for me personally. So I kind of just had to be really careful, kind of edge my wedge into their spinner. And yeah, it worked pretty well. Just got a bunch of lifts on him, flipping the screws, and got the judge's decision.
Yeah. Then the next match, I mean, there's not a lot to talk about because it was a very short match. But you KO'd Ghost Raptor after they came out in the previous match and looked more like Ghost Rider because they were on fire. And had won that match. I mean, obviously, when I was looking at that matchup, I'm like, yeah, like Whiplash is going to win this. But it was in very quick and decisive fashion.
Yeah, I think I was more nervous than people would think before this fight. Just because Ghost Raptor is like a kind of weird robot. It's got like a lifter. It's got some sort of ground game, but also has kind of this, tilted horizontal, kind of high up. So it's like a weird robot to like plan armor for or plan wedgelets for. It's like, I don't know, which do I choose, the plow or the vertical spinner configuration? I was kind of debating in my head. But Chuck, on the other hand, was just kind of trying to put a robot together. Like he didn't care who he was fighting. Like he just wanted a robot that was working, because like he fought Cobalt, got exploded, like managed to put it back together. Fought Shred. Yeah,
It's amazing he got it back together.
It
at all.
really is, because it was in so many pieces and so damaged and burned. And I mean, I give them a lot of credit, and that they put that much effort to getting it back together and competing again. So, good for them. And
I think he was a little stressed out because right at weigh-in, he was like not just a little bit overweight, but
he was a lot overweight.
Super duper overweight.
Yeah.
Like in the
30
double
pounds over or
digits.
something.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's trying to take weight off, and we're like, you're never going to get rid of 30 pounds or 15 or
50
20
pounds
or
or
whatever
something.
it was. And we're like, just go
Yeah,
ahead.
just go
it's
ahead.
fine.
So we said, yeah, we'll waive the weight and go. I mean, we want to beat him in the arena, not on the scale, so we're there to fight, and he's a good guy, and you've known him forever. So let's do it,
Yeah.
I give him a lot of credit for just getting it together.
He had enough to overcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
After that Cobalt fight. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that fight was just real simple. Drove into him and then just realized I got under him really quick. And I pushed him around, pushed him in the screws, flipped him over. Then when I saw they were balanced on their head, I was just like, okay, like Whiplash has been through a lot this season. Like, I don't know if I want to push it any harder before our next fight. So I just left him there and, hoped we didn't have any damage or anything. And yeah, it was a quick one.
Yeah. I mean, it was good that it was, given the next opponent that you had was Black Dragon. And I honestly, I didn't know what to think about this fight, before I saw it, because Black Dragon, obviously great robot. They had previously won the Desperado, which is also, a very grueling tournament. And so like, to me, I thought that they had that in their favor, but Whiplash, obviously great robot. Matt, you're a great driver. And that was a really good example of that in that match.
Yeah. So Black Dragon we've had experience with. I fought them in like the 2020 semifinals. So like we fought them there. That was one of my favorite fights ever. Like everything went right that match. Like everything went right.
And it was a brutal match.
Yeah. So that was a great fight. Like so having that experience, having that win, like I was relatively confident. Like even though Black Dragon is a really top tier opponent, like in the kind of rock paper scissors of it, like we have a lot of advantages, I feel. So even though they're top tier, I was like, okay, I think we have all the right stuff to do well in this match. And it was a kind of a good comparison between like spinner Whiplash and non-spinner Whiplash. Whereas the first fight, we like had a lot of control. We did some damage, but it was mostly controlling. This fight, it was like control on another level, in my opinion. Like just kind of how we were able to pick them up and hold them in the air and do all that crazy stuff we didn't do last season. It's kind of a testament to focusing on the lifter, I would say, this season. But there's another fight. Really couldn't have gone much better. One thing I did notice is like about halfway through the fight, we kind of, the drive motors in Whiplash, I mean, they're old, short mags. We have 4 of them in there. And they were starting to get pretty sad about halfway through the Black Dragon fight. And luckily it didn't matter too much because they were upside down and kind of not really much of a threat at that point. So I just kind of carefully try to keep them that way and drive around and try not to burn up our drive. And yeah, we survived till the end and we won. So it was good.
Yeah, it was definitely great. I think that result in the end, you going up against Witch Doctor, was what everybody expected. Now, before we talk about that match specifically, I'm really curious, because one thing that I was thinking for that entire, episode bracket was, I was really surprised that in no matches did you bust out the vertical disc spinner. And I'm curious as to why.
It was mostly like, that was at the dismay of the rest of our team, but like I don't know, it really depended who. Okay, so the way I looked at it, the season prior or even the season before that, every fight we lost, the spinner was a non-factor. Like every single fight we lost, like if you look at all of them, for the most part the spinner we weren't able to be effective with it in any way. Like we can't compete against endgame spinner with our tiny spinner. there's really no sense in having that against all the heavy hitters. And we fought a lot of really heavy hitters that required armor. And for the most part, it worked, I think, about as well as I could have hoped it to. Like we did lose against Cobalt and we lost against Witch Doctor, but strategically we were winning both of those fights.
Yeah.
The Cobalt fight, for the 20 seconds we weren't stuck out of the 25 seconds, we were pretty much winning. And for Witch Doctor, we were in pretty much complete control I'd say 90% of that fight until the very, very end. So I think that was kind of a testament to kind of what I thought would happen did happen. Like I thought taking off the spinner would improve. It did improve, and the robot did things that it couldn't do before. We were able to handle opponents that we couldn't handle before. So in that way, I thought it was a great strategic decision where, the robot really, it performed better, in my opinion. It really did perform better. Like, we just had other weird gremlins get us. But I know people miss it and stuff, but we'll see next season.
Well,
Maybe
and I want to just be clear in that we didn't go into this season at all thinking, oh, we're not running the spinner at all.
Yeah.
I mean, we were totally prepared with it, and it just happened to be the fights that we got, the matchups that we got. It didn't make sense for us to use the spinner.
Yeah.
Personally, I would have loved for him to use it, and I know that he's an amazing driver, and strategically the fights were great, but I think the spinner makes it a little bit more exciting, and I know the fans really like it, and I think that he's figured out a way to do both for next season, where we'll have the strength on the front.
Yes, next season is for whenever that may be, it is a brand new build. So it'll be it'll be exciting.
I mean, we build new every season, but this is a brand new.
Well, this is like new. It is normally every season we kind of just iterate on the same thing. This is same Whiplash design, but it is brand new design
and build.
And build.
It's designed very much differently than in previous seasons. So it'll be a new robot.
Optimized everything.
Yeah. It's truly designed well now.
I mean, I thought it was designed well before, but we'll see about that. But I mean, like with that Witch Doctor fight, though, even though ultimately you lost, like you said, you were in control most of the match. And I mean, this is kind of what I've said a lot of times on this show, is that for anyone that thinks, oh, you have to have a spinner or you have to use a spinner to be successful in Battlebots, I don't think so at all. I mean, I love control bots. And for me, like, to see a robot like Whiplash do what you did in that tournament kind of makes that point. May have ultimately lost that match, but it was at the very end. And it was just one of those like split second type of things where obviously Mike's a great driver too, and he's going to take advantage of just little things like that.
Yeah, that was just kind of bad timing on when things on the robot stopped working. I mean, it was like the last 10, 20 seconds or so. Like, as like I said in the Black Dragon fight, like, our drive started getting worse and worse, but luckily we weren't in many pushing encounters in that fight. So I could just kind of coast along and not worry about it too much. But Witch Doctor is a robot that, they always get back on their feet. They're always coming at you, always pointing you in. I mean, when you look at it, we were pushing around 500 pounds for almost 3 minutes straight, because we were kind of pushing him most of the fight. So we're driving essentially a 500-pound robot that whole entire match. And then by the end of the fight, the drive was just so bad. Like, when they hit us, Whiplash could only go forwards and backwards. The drive was so bad. Like, we literally could not turn. It was just forward, backwards. And I'm like, crap, like, we're a sitting duck now. Like, and Mike, I mean, I don't even know if he noticed that that was all we could do. But, the second I wasn't dodging his hits, he was hitting us in the right spot.
So had we changed out the drive motors, how different would it have been?
I don't know. Couldn't tell you. Honestly, mag motors are mag motors. I don't think it would have been a different fight. But and we may have not have won the judge's decision had they not gotten to our side, if I'm being totally honest, because they scored all the damage points. So it's like
they got all the damage.
And aggression was like maybe equal. We definitely took all the control points, but so had that not happened, I think maybe they still would have won. It would have been toss up.
Just as you said, we were leading and controlling the match for most of the match. And, Mike, I mean, Witch Doctor is a great team, and Mike and Andrea are great drivers and designers and everything. But I really felt we had them, and you know, they won fair and square, and they deserve 100% credit for that. But to me, we lost it. They didn't beat us per se. We lost it because when we got the last flip, the switch fell out. Okay, and we could have flipped ourselves back over, but we.
If we flipped ourselves back over, what would have happened with the robot? They would have hit us again. They would have hit us again, and we would have had a second hole in our robot. I don't see that point. Like we would have just lost even worse had we self-righted.
You never give up. You know, I mean, it would have been nice to have the robot work the whole match. If they crashed us, if they kill, look at Endgame. I mean, we couldn't get more killed than Endgame, but you know, that was a great match. And in losing, it's fine, it's cool, but you know, I want to get beaten. I don't want to lose, you know, I don't want to lose because
it was a little bit of both.
It was. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, if you notice, I was hitting my head against the glass after the match, which I was just like, oh my God, we had that.
I don't know how we have two such well-adjusted, calm children. Because he and I are like so like.
Me and Jason are forming our own team.
I think you already did. All I do is pay the bills and schlep you.
It was a great season. Like it was, you know, the Slugfest was great. Like that there were a lot of positive takeaways from that. And I mean, you know, I think definitely for Whiplash at this point, I see a giant nut or golden bolt. It's not an if, it's a when. And you know, I think Defender is on track to being a great robot as well. Obviously with one season in the books, you know, that there's not a lot to analyze there, but great from my perspective from what I've seen so far. So
yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And right at the end of the tournament, to be honest, I was feeling pretty good about us as a whole, just because we successfully brought the new rookie robot. We got it to the top 34. This was also right around the time when the toy was coming out and the like Robot Combat Hall of Fame or whatever, like honorably mentioned us. So like we like in the eyes of the public, like they didn't know that we only were like top 16 with Whiplash or whatever. But I was feeling pretty good about all of it in like the big scheme of things, because that is like pretty big, like kind of light at the end of the tunnel stuff when you get the toy and you get in like the Hall of Fame. And like we were finalists the year before, so as far as anyone else knew, we were pretty up there. So there's definitely a bright side to that competition for sure.
Yeah.
We're really missing having Jason here. We're gonna fly him in to help us.
Yeah.
Kind of like in a couple weekends, hopefully.
No, right now the build's pretty crazy because like our dad's on a completely separate project, so he doesn't really have time to help with Battlebots Whiplash. And my mom's doing all the, you know, everything that's not building, which is an excessive amount of work. So that kind of leaves me right now like the sole builder of new Whiplash. So it's been pretty darn brutal, if I'm being honest. It's gonna be tough. I think we'll get it done.
We'll be ready.
Yeah.
I mean, last year I think we made the mistake. I feel really bad because Jason missed the first 2 weeks of the semester. It was your junior year.
Yeah, it was the first time classes were back in person after COVID.
Yeah, so
there was
that
a lot going on.
Was stressful and a really bad time to miss. That was when we were filming. So yeah, he can't do that again this year.
Yeah.
And I'm also fortunate that gives me the time to really like kind of dial in Defender and not rush it and focus on Whiplash and just kind of take it slow, because I think we're going to be doing this for a while and we could definitely take our time.
So is that your official statement for this next season?
Yeah. So
now.
We're only going with Whiplash this season. Haven't posted that anywhere at all.
Robo games, on the other hand, maybe
we're definitely going to try and get Defender or something like it into some other competitions in the meantime. So
yeah, absolutely, because there's there is robo games. That's going to be a thing next year. So
yeah, we're really excited about that.
That is
That's
I'm
a
so
big
happy
deal
about
that that's
that.
coming back.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah, well, that is awesome. Are there any other updates on either robot, for the times to come that you can share? Because I know you've talked, quite a bit about some of the updates in general.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the new Whiplash it's coming along. Like, I kind of designed all of it like 6 months ago and started building it about a month ago. So it's like about a month into the build. But I think for the newest, okay, so last season, pretty much all I was thinking about was strategy, like strategy. Like, because the robot mechanically worked great the season before, like no issues really. It was just we had strategic losses to Saw Blaze and Endgame. So that was all I was thinking about. This season, I'm kind of taking the opposite approach, more improving engineering decisions and just trying to make it like the best Whiplash it can be rather than just like tailoring to every opponent specifically. So I'm just trying to build the best, coolest Whiplash I can right now and not worrying too much about who I might be fighting. I'm just trying to make it as good as it can be and as cool as it can be. And just trying to make the best Whiplash I can. And that's pretty much what it's coming down to.
And
Yeah, from my perspective with Matthew just being out of college now, I think that's a huge part of it. Like you absolutely know what you're doing and you have all the experience in the world. And when we originally started building Whiplashes, that was before either of us were in college and we really had no like formal training. And last year's Whiplash honestly had a lot of similarities to that. And I think this is really kind of like adult team, like we're normally
Yeah,
It's a
you're right.
mature team
If
and a
you-
mature
if you look
design.
up to last year's Whiplash, it was carrying over decisions I made when I was like 16 for like the very first incarnation, like years and years ago. So it's like
I was
it's kind of
putting
time
into this
to
right when I was 14. Like
Right.
it was,
yeah.
it was
So I think it's time to have the updated version. So we'll see
The
how it
grown-up
does.
version of Whiplash.
Yeah.
Whiplash is all grown up.
Well, you have two amazing robots. I am so excited to see what happens next season. I think it's going to be great. And I appreciate you all, especially with the build and everything going on, taking the time to come on the podcast and, talk about this today.
Well, thanks for
Thank you
having
for
us.
having
us. Thank you
It's
for
been
having us.
really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is great.
absolutely.
Great.
For everyone that watches the show, continue to leave your feedback, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. As everybody knows, my mission here is to continue to build interest in this sport and have these great builders and drivers on the show to talk about what they're doing, because this is just it's an amazing Battlebots family, really. So
Thank you.
all
Thank you
right,
so
well,
much.
we'll see you next time on the show.
Okay, thanks
Thank you for having
again.
us.
Thank you.
Bye.